Part 4. Marcus had the driver let him out on the side of the Dodge, mostly where cab rides and services post up. As soon as he got out of the car, Marcus noticed Gabby all the way across the parking lot circling around. He headed her way and flagged her down. She sees him immediately, but it is hard to miss a 6'1.5" tall man, even at night. He hopped in the car, this time with smiles and kisses. "Get out of town. To the spot," he said abruptly. She headed out towards the highway, hardly concealing her delight. At that moment, Marcus knew she counted what he stuffed in the emergency bag. Once on the highway, she couldn't contain it anymore. She lit up with excitement and asked him, "Was it that good?" Marcus didn't respond. That was all the answer she needed anyway. She trusts him completely. Gabby drove through the night past Boulder City all the way to Arizona. After a couple of hours and the first shimmer of twilight arriving, Marcus instructed her to find the next motel that looked like they took cash. Soon after, she exited and found a spot a few miles off the highway in what looked like it used to be a small town. There's a small motel with a few units that looked as run down as everything else. It looked like time stopped there somewhere during the worst moment of the 1950s. As dusty and decrepit as it was, someone could have told Marcus nuclear testing was being done nearby, and he would have asked, "At what time?" They parked right out front of the door in the motel's dirt lot. Once inside the cramped lobby, they are met at the check-in by a haggard old white lady who hasn't seen a person of colour. Hell, her dry, pale skin looked as though she hasn't seen colour in a long time. Once inside the cramped lobby, they're met at the check-in by a haggard old white lady who hasn't seen a person of colour. Hell, her dry, pale skin looked as though she hasn't seen colour at all in a long time. Not in the mood for pleasantries, Marcus took a $100 bill out and laid it in front of the lady. She took Marcus's $100 bill and inspected it with forensic clarity. After her approval was met, she told him it's $25 a night, and the kitchen closes at 7 o'clock. Marcus and Gabby glared at each other and exchanged a telepathic conversation only a couple together this long can have, the one where they simultaneously think, "Is this bitch for real? I'd rather die." Marcus took the keys and told her to keep the change. They would be there for 2 days. No paperwork, no fuss. She stuffed the bill in her bosom and turned around to continue watching her small television tucked in the corner behind the desk. Their room was the last on the row. Number 5. Marcus and Gabby smelled it before it opened. It was horrendous. The bed was made up. It looked relatively clean, but the smell of animals and/or urine was nauseating. The lime green worn-down carpet was the appropriate aesthetic to match the 1960s yard sale furniture and decor. Even the reddish, burnt orange bedding looked tacky, even for the disco era it was created. On the nightstand close to the door, Marcus noticed a black cassette tape sitting on top of it. It was out of place, particularly at this time of year, but it sparked his curiosity and the memories of making mixtapes for his girlfriend in the early 90s. Marcus picked it up without hesitation. It was well worn and labelled Hotel California on a piece of masking tape. "Fuck the Eagles," Marcus muttered to himself. The tape was peeling on an end, so he ripped it off, only to be quietly incensed that it didn't tear off all the way. "Baby, it's not even worth it," Gabby said, hoping to persuade Marcus long enough to reconsider before she dared step foot inside. It didn't even register though. Marcus tossed the tape across the room in disgust. He heard Gabby, but could ignore almost anything now, including a complaint. He just wanted her to get undressed and unwrapped immediately. "Come on, babe. It's just for a minute, alright?" He pleaded, as she walked in as timid and cautious as a crime scene. Once inside, Gabby went straight to the bathroom and let out a gasp that couldn't be good. Marcus ignored it. He yanked off his sweater, shoes, jeans almost in one motion. He was happiest to unload his underwear first of all. He took his time with his chest and stomach first, layer by layer. Some parts of tape stuck to incredibly sensitive skin. Then the thighs and legs were as simple as slipping off knee pads. While he contemplated how to get his arms undone, he startled when he looked up to see a wide-eyed Gabby covering her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down her face. Marcus knew this had to be stopped before it began. Gabby can be the loudest and most extreme when she cries. This was not the time. "Please, don't. You can't, okay?" Marcus stated calmly with both hands up in defense. She nodded in acknowledgement, returned to the bathroom, and closed the door. Marcus let out a deep breath that only striking panic can make you appreciate. After a couple minutes, she returned, composed, smiling. Before she could even ask, Marcus bluntly told her, "I cleared $1 million, baby." Then, that's a good stopping point for me. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to go to www.didyoubuy.thebook.com. Remember, for just $7 a day, you can feed a 38-year-old African-American child. Cheers!